This is Deborah Dupre. I'm reporting from Arkansas and discussing some of the problems that the people here in Conway and other parts of Arkansas nearby have experienced.
Hello, my name is April Lane. I'm a member of the Faulkner County Citizens Advisory Group. I'm also president of Environmental Alliance and co-director of ArkansasFracking.org. I've, over the last 2.5 years, visited with residents and families throughout the Fayetteville Shale, many who have had disastrous negative effects to them. One of whom is Beverly Lankford, who lives in Bee Branch, Arkansas, a good friend of a childhood friend of mine. It's her mother, actually. And when drilling occurred in her area, began having night spells, couldn't sleep, had to begin taking medication, as well as her daughter and everyone else in the home, to be able to sleep at night. She ended up getting fibromyalgia and having nervous spasms through her body, lots of respiratory effects. And she reached out to every state agency and legislator that she could think of, to no avail. No one came to help until after the drilling had ceased and left the area, after which ADQ did come out and test the air and reported that the air was clean. She, to this day, is a strong supporter of us in our group, but has run out of fuel to keep fighting. So that is what we're here to do, is continue that fight for her.
I'm Dirk Turk here in Greenbrier. We're surrounded by 14 wells within 2 miles. Within 1,000 feet, there's 6 of them. And I've had the rashes, the nosebleeds, my tongue's bled shortly after the fracking process was done on those wells. And
there's been a number of house fires of officially inexplainable origin, although they have been close to drilling, compressing, or transporting pipeline industry, construction. The houses would catch fire very rapidly and without a lot of explanation, and then some of them would continue to burn past the point of what you would think a house should, as though there was still a fuel source involved. So, and that's happened a number of times, although it's not being reported or tracked as such.
right here across the little ravine back in the woods, a double-wide modular home just burned to the ground. And when it was burning, I came down here, and it definitely had a fuel source coming out of it. There was a pipe sticking up in the air that was like had gas coming out of it, and it wasn't a propane tank. It was blue copper pipe. And typically here in Arkansas, that blue copper pipe is buried in the slab. That's water. And this would be on a watered well on this road. I suspect that was the house filled with methane through the water, and something torched it electrically, a spark of some kind. 4 houses that have mysteriously exploded and burned to the ground.
This is the big fear at the Bayou Corn sinkhole explosions.
There's 2 of them are north of us, this one, and there's one right down here at the bottom of the hill that went about a year before this one did. It also had a fuel source in the middle of the house. It burned for 3 days. You never see the industry around, although I have seen up here these, they're labeled emergency drilling response teams. They have pickup trucks with spilled kits. They have water and airtight enclosed bulldozers on trailers that you would use to like bulldoze in a well that burst into flames or something. And then that house also burst into flames back here on the right, and had a fuel source. That burned for 3 days.
The Fayetteville Shale area is from Tracy Wilson. She is at home most of the time, so her exposure is pretty constant, and there's a lot of fracking and drilling in her area. She actually has a facility where she houses rescue animals, exotic animals, and many of her animals have lost hair, had neurological problems that couldn't be explained through any normal feline diseases. She herself has passed out in her home and has had nosebleeds, and she actually, about a year and a half ago, passed out at the top of her stairs in her home and fell down the stairs. She broke her foot really badly, and she's still recovering from that. She's had to have 2 surgeries since then. Her parents, who live probably 40 or 50 miles outside of the Shale area, came to visit, and when they were there visiting, they all had nosebleeds at the same time. So there are some very immediate effects. Yeah, that's probably one of the most impactful stories in the Fayetteville Shale.
I've had squirrels on the porch, lost their tails, lost hair, tumors, died. We've had deer at the feeders that were all skin and bones, dead Cooper's hawks in the front yard. The lady down the road had probably a couple hundred goats when we moved here in 2004. In 2008, they drilled a well right behind her house, like 500 feet. Drilled in 08. It was hydrogen sulfide, never went in production. She had a couple hundred goats till that happened, and every year it dwindled down to less and less goats. She had probably 30 goats and a big old white dog for herding them. And I dropped off hydrogen sulfide information with her. She always looked really bad. And then somebody had hit her dog out here, and she committed suicide right here on off the shoulder of the road with the dog last year in March. And then
Specific individuals make for great stories and examples. I think in general the point needs to be made about the exposures to the workers and the often reliance on those workers who are less able to understand the dangers or to protect themselves appropriately. These jobs are high paying and they're also high risk, but due to limited availability of other jobs in the area.
For example, one of the workers in that compressor station is back there working like this. What kind of protection is that in your shirt? That's no protection. You actually need a gas mask when you're doing this or working in them pads. That's toxic stuff they're exposed to every day, just like the residents around it. But, you know, to just put your shirt over your nose to work there, that's not it. That's not the answer. Their company got to know that. That's unacceptable to me. Tracy had lost one of her big cats right around Thanksgiving, and the blood testing and all that came back that it was antifreeze. Well, the cat wasn't exposed to antifreeze, but the ingredients in some of the fracking stuff is antifreeze. In the industry even admits it's antifreeze. Her big cat and then the other animals that she still had, the vets recommended that she start treating them with some grain alcohol to help treat them for this antifreeze poisoning. And it seemed to have worked. And then I'm sitting here remembering over the last 3 years when the man camp was up here with a couple thousand guys in it, that every week I would see a trailer load of alcohol headed north to the man camp. I followed it to the man camp twice, and not only is that illegal to truck that much alcohol as an individual, but they were doing it. And that would explain some of why the workers aren't as sick as the residents if they drink a lot at night or on weekends. If you're using grain alcohol to treat an animal, well, wouldn't that do the same thing for a human?
It makes perfect sense as far as the enzyme reactions within the body, as far as counteracting some of those high toxic levels. They also require the workers to work extended hours, many over 80, 90 hours a week, and if they're not able to withstand that pace, then they're not able to keep their job. So what's well known as the healthy worker effect takes place here as well, because the exposures are so dynamic and each person's individual ability to be able to process toxins are also different. When they reach that point of no return, then they're simply not able to work any longer, and they're no longer considered part of that workforce. We know for sure that the emergency room injuries and trauma related to the industry have certainly spiked, and that data is available for review. Motor vehicle accidents related to the industry have spiked. So even though many of these occupationally related illnesses and injuries are not being reported as such, they certainly are present in the community.
The bad air and chemicals into you, I know, is in the livestock here. And if livestock are poisoned and then you eat it as a human, it's 100 times stronger chemical in you. If that livestock, whatever it might be, is poisoned and has a baby and is breastfeeding, it's 1,000 times stronger in the breast milk. Therefore, that explains why young cows a month or two old die, or there's miscarriages. And I've heard that from humans. I've tried to get these girls to go public with it. I know there's been miscarriages here that live with gas wells like right across the street. There's been a mother that had a miscarriage and a year later had a baby, and while she was breastfeeding it, 2 months old, it died. And then another miscarriage in that same family that lives around these wells. So it's pretty obvious that something's wrong. These are young, healthy girls that are just having miscarriages and losing babies. And I've heard that from several people. Through a friend of a friend had a baby die, 2 months old or 3 months old. And it's related to the air. I'm sure it is. There's something in the air that's doing this. It just doesn't happen. But they think it's God's way. I hear that over and over again here. We're in the Bible Belt, and they think God intended that to happen. It can't be the gas well across the street. It's God's way. And I don't accept that. If there's something wrong, you got to do something about it.
And the seismic activity has certainly been tremendous here in Arkansas.
Over 1,400 earthquakes in 8 months from the injection wells that they ended up closing.
Have the strength and just the wherewithal to move forward with this and keep going is because of my son Lincoln, who is now 3. I remember being in bed with him when we had the 4.7 earthquake, before knowing for sure that the injection wells had caused the earthquakes in our area, and it shook the house so hard that I heard Sam yell at me from the living room to get Lincoln, and I grabbed him and rolled out of bed and ran towards the door. And just that feeling of helplessness and that feeling of not being able to protect him possibly has really stayed with me throughout this whole process, especially after finding out that it was the injection wells and it is the fracking and the natural gas extraction that did cause the earthquakes. I'll never get over that. I will never, be able to feel safe and be able to look to my government and local industries and feel like they're doing the best they can, because they're not.
And it's 5, 6, 7, open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die. Now come on, Wall Street, don't be slow. Man, this is war, a go-go. There's plenty good money to be made, supplying the army with the tools of the trade. Just hope and pray that if they drop the bomb, they drop it on the